Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and today in the detailed forecast update coming your way. We've got a lot to be getting through today. We're going to be talking about the rainfall that's expected to develop across New South Wales and southeastern Queensland. We'll talk about some thunderstorms as well happening around the nation. We'll touch up on far north Queensland, a bit of a tropical forecast as well. And we'll take a look at some cold fronts that are impacting Western Australia and also a major hurricane going for the United States. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you haven't already, your support is greatly appreciated. So taking a look at the New South Wales Queensland situation right now, you can see a low pressure area starting to develop on the New South Wales Queensland border. That's expected to slide out into the the Tasman or the Coral Sea at this point. It's into the Pacific Ocean. It's expected to slide out there later on today and into early tomorrow morning and wrap itself up and dump a lot of rainfall tomorrow throughout the northeastern parts of New South Wales, between Newcastle right up towards Brisbane and that sort of area. I'm not going to call this a rain bomb because 200 millimetres, which is kind of the maximum amount of rainfall possible from this 3-day weather event, is possible, and that is kind of not stock standard, but it isn't like ridiculous rainfall for this part of New South Wales and Queensland, but you could compare it to one of such. It is certainly going to be a pretty wet weekend up there, and the showers have already started with over 125 millimetres falling outside of Newcastle over the past 24 hours, and 50 millimetres at Mount Tamborine Alert outside of the Gold Coast, so some heavy accumulations on both sides of the border at this time, and the rainfall is just expected to continue piling on over the next 24 to 36 hours. It's also a little bit gusty as well. You can see wind observations along the coastline are starting to bring up. They're around 50 k's an hour now between Coffs Harbour up towards Lismore, and even inland as well outside of Armidale. They're almost gale force out there, so it's certainly going to be a bit of a blustery one today as this low pressure system slowly intensifies. So now let's take a look at the rainfall forecast here. There's really no storms apparent with this weather system. It's just the light rainfall streaming ashore at this time, but this low pressure area will slowly develop throughout the course of today and into later this evening before wrapping itself up very nicely and bringing the rainfall ashore from about midday tomorrow. The rainfall will be pretty steady from here on out through to about Saturday morning, but it will start to pipe up again between 10 and 12 p.m. 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. tomorrow morning on the northeastern corner of New South Wales, most likely between Coffs Harbour and the Gold Coast, where the heavy falls are expected. Lismore and Grafton, Yamba, that sort of area, expecting the heaviest of accumulations from this weather event here, most likely between 12 and about 4 or 5 p.m. The rainfall will continue throughout the evening though and into early Sunday morning, with some heavy falls are still possible early Sunday morning outside of Coffs Harbour, but this low pressure system will weaken off substantially throughout Sunday and creep further out to sea, and as such will bring the worst of the weather away with it. Really not expecting anything in the way of severe thunderstorms, but we could constitute this as severe weather, especially in the sense that we are talking about some heavy rainfall here, and I'm surprised the Bureau of Meteorology hasn't actually issued a severe weather warning. I do find that they're pretty good with issuing severe weather warnings when there's 80 millimetres over a 6-hour period expected, and I think tomorrow afternoon there certainly is going to be some pretty heavy rainfall accumulations. So from here on out, throughout the next 48 hours, we are expecting peak rainfall accumulations until Sunday morning to approach 150 millimetres outside of Coffs Harbour, up towards Yamba and Lismore as well. The accumulations have been backed off slightly from yesterday's forecast, but that's already on top of the 100 millimetres or so that has already fallen in the northeastern corner of New South Wales. So we could be seeing rainfall accumulations over this weather event here max out at about 250 millimetres. I reckon the most widespread accumulations will be between sort of 50 and 100 millimetres, especially between Cape Byron down towards Lismore and Grafton. I think those locations are looking set to receive between 50 and 100 millimetres on Saturday from tonight into Sunday morning, and then down towards Kempsey, Port Macquarie and Taree as well, between 40 and 80 millimetres expected there. It's just going to be the locations around Coffs Harbour and maybe up towards Yamba and Lismore where the heaviest falls are going to be expected from this weather system as well. And like I have said as well, I'm surprised the Bureau of Meteorology hasn't issued a severe weather warning for this weather event here. And I don't want to sound alarmist or make anyone panic up here. This certainly isn't a weather event that's going to cause moderate to major riverine flooding, but it is a lot of rainfall and it's going to be happening over a short period of time, and it will be heavy at times. So there is the chance of flash flooding. The roads are going to be very dangerous as well on Saturday, so make sure you are enjoying the grand final inside, and you make sure as well that you're barracking for Brisbane. They're the team to be going for, mark my words. Also, in terms of this low pressure system here, as with all low pressure systems, we've got to be talking about the wind threat. You can see there are some strong wind gusts offshore at this time, between 80 and 90 kilometres an hour, and they're going to be wrapping themselves up quite substantially as well. These wind gusts will max out as this low pressure system intensifies throughout the course of tonight into early tomorrow morning. We could be seeing wind gusts up to 100 kilometres an hour brought ashore by early tomorrow morning before the real rainfall does hit. The wind certainly will be quite strong, quite gusty, but it wouldn't be anything in comparison to the rainfall. And again, this part of New South Wales and Queensland are built for it, so it's nothing too concerning at this time. And also some pretty big waves are expected tomorrow morning, and they do have a hazardous surf warning in place for the northeastern corner of New South Wales. Again, make sure you are taking it very easy on those roads and very easy around the water as well, because those conditions are going to be hazardous throughout the course of tonight into tomorrow morning, and even in towards Sunday morning as well, when the weather is expected to clear off up there. Now, the rainfall is just going to be happening over this sort of 36-hour period. There really isn't too much else on the forecast beyond that. So we're going to move out of New South Wales at this time and give it a little bit more of a general tropical forecast for Queensland as well. Queensland is expecting some good rainfall from this weather event, but it is going to be reserved for the Gold Coast, and that's kind of it. There is now a little bit of rainfall starting to pipe onto the marks up in far north Queensland, but when I say a little bit of rainfall, I mean basically a drop or two, 25 millimetres or so. Really nothing worth talking about up there, but we do have a few thunderstorms that are possible into the later parts of next week, Wednesday and Thursday onwards across the central parts of Queensland. We could be seeing a bit of a thunderstorm burst around Longreach and Hughenden, and thunderstorms are also possible into the later parts of next weekend as well, with the passage of a low pressure system, which it looks like has been erased from the forecast in the past hour. That's a little bit embarrassing, but yeah, we will keep a very close eye on things up in Queensland. We're now moving into October, so the rainfall is only a couple of weeks away now as opposed to a couple of months. There'll be a detailed wet season update coming out on Tuesday as well, especially for Queensland. I've made some pretty big changes on the forecast there, so you want to be sticking around for that. That's definitely going to be an interesting one indeed. Now, before we talk about thunderstorms across New South Wales, I would just like to bring everyone's attention over to Western Australia. We have had a cold front blow through overnight, and that's stopped some relatively good rainfall accumulations, the best that we've had in about a month. In fact, my weather station overnight picked up 20 millimetres or 19.8 millimetres, with a little bit more rainfall now expected. Peak rainfall accumulations from the Bureau of Meteorology have been up to 25 millimetres around Collie and Bunbury, so some good accumulations there. And in the southwest, just let me know how much rainfall you have had as well. I'm very interested. Across the Goldfields, we have had some thunderstorms blow through as well, and they're going to be continuing throughout the course of today, firing up again later this afternoon and evening into the Goldfields in the south interior. So if you do live Kalgoorlie, northeast of a line from Kalgoorlie across towards about Norseman and Esperance, there is a chance of thunderstorms, which could also potentially be severe, with large hailstones and damaging winds that extending right up towards Warburton, and those thunderstorms continuing up into the Kimberley region. This is going to be a pretty interesting sight, the satellite picture tonight, and I cannot wait to see it. So if you're a fan of satellite pictures, make sure you're checking the satellite about this evening around sunset, because the parts of Western Australia close to the NT and SAS border are going to be quite spicy indeed on the satellite picture, with some good thunderstorms blowing through into South Australia and the Northern Territory as well by Saturday afternoon from a bit of a cold front that's expected to sweep through, which we'll get to in just a second. This cold front here is what we look out for as well, especially this time of the year, and this does lead us nicely on into the next part of the video, crossing towards New South Wales. We could be seeing a little bit of a thunderstorm outbreak from the low pressure areas blowing through on Sunday and Monday up into the northeast of the state, which could deliver a little bit more rainfall up there. But it's when we see fronts like this sweeping across the state where we do pay attention quite closely to what thunderstorms could be moving through. West Australia also has that cold front coming through Wednesday, and that could bring some thunderstorm activities. Again, we looked at it yesterday and there was a chance of thunderstorms, but that's since been erased from the forecast today, and that was for later on next week on Friday and Saturday, but again, not really worth talking about because it has been erased. In all, I think the weather forecast has been back down in terms of severe weather later on in the forecast period, so next week we're not going to be having too much to be talking about by the looks of things. Just a couple of cold fronts moving through to the southwest of Western Australia. But on that note, let's finish up with the thunderstorms and the fronts and the low pressure areas and talk about some fine weather, and it's going to be happening tomorrow for the big game over in Melbourne, Victoria. We're expecting, as you've heard in the last couple of updates, a fine sunny top of 20 degrees over in Melbourne. A fantastic day indeed for some footy. A cold front will sweep through later on Saturday night into Sunday morning across the western half of the state, reaching the Melbourne metro area at around midday or a late lunchtime around 1 or 2 p.m. local time, and then sweeping through Tasmania and delivering up to 15 millimetres there, but it's not going to be strong, and it's going to be coming through Sunday. The weather remains clear and relatively warm as well right throughout the course of Saturday. It's going to be pretty warm in the northern parts of the state, Mildura going up to 25, so it looks like a pretty pleasant weather forecast and a great day to play some good footy in Melbourne. And as you've heard me talk about for this week, make sure that you are supporting Brisbane. They're the team to go for, and it's going to be fantastic to see, that's for sure. But yeah, that basically does it in terms of an Australian weather forecast. I've kept things pretty simple this update, so if I have left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to as many people as I can throughout the course of today. Before I do finish up this video though, you'd be wondering why it's so short. We're going to move over to the United States on the complete other side of the world. We've got a major hurricane going into the Florida Panhandle at this time, and it is a strong one. This is Major Hurricane Helene, which is currently a Category 3 strength major hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, with peak winds up to 105 knots. That's 120 miles per hour, or nearly 200 kilometers an hour for the metric system. Now, the hurricane here would be the equivalent of a high-end Category 4 on the Australian scale, and it's probably going to make landfall as a Category 5 on the Australian scale, somewhere between Panama City and Gina through here. It's going to blow through Tallahassee later on tonight, and it's a strengthening system. It is a strong storm, that's for sure. And take a look at the radar imagery here. It looks like an absolute brute, and it's got a lot of people worried throughout the Florida Panhandle, and it is certainly going to be one of the strongest landfalls, or hopefully the strongest landfall of hurricane season 2024. You can already see peak winds up to 105 kilometers an hour, and this observation was taken an hour ago when the hurricane was blowing through this area. An hour ago, so this wind observation was likely much stronger from the ship that moved through the area. Certainly is a strong storm, that's for sure, and look at it move through here. It looks absolutely beautiful here. It's going to make landfall somewhere around sort of St. Mark's, south of Tallahassee, and it will blow through as a powerful system through Tallahassee. Storm surge is expected to be as high as 20 feet, that is 6 meters above the highest astronomical tide. It's going to be a very big storm indeed, and certainly one of Florida's most powerful landfalls in quite a few years. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on things with this hurricane. It's going to be a dangerous one. So if you do live in Florida and you found this update through the YouTube algorithm, then first of all, hello, and second of all, make sure you are playing it very safe with this system. Your preparations should be completely done by this time, because this is an impending disaster at this time, and I think impending disaster is the right word to use. This is going to be a strong landfall, that's for sure. Just look at how much rainfall it's about to deliver to Georgia, Alabama, Carolina, and even up in towards Tennessee and North Carolina as well. It's certainly producing a lot of rainfall, and you can see rainfall accumulations from this system are going to be quite high. Not initially where the storm blows through, but we are looking at some pretty good rainfall accumulations once the storm stalls or stops moving up in Tennessee and Kentucky, where we could be seeing rainfall accumulations approach about 150 or 200 millimeters. That's between 6 and 8 inches. Not too wet for a hurricane of this magnitude, but again, that is certainly some pretty significant rainfall, and certainly something that we will want to keep an eye on. So we'll touch base again with a major hurricane Helene in tomorrow morning's update, where it will be over the continental United States and weakening rapidly, but this is certainly going to be a strong system indeed. So if you do live in the United States, or you're interested in United States weather, then this is certainly an update for you. And back to Australia, back to the homeland, you can see in terms of rainfall as well over the next 10 days, I'm just going to do this just to kind of make the video a little bit more comprehensive. It's looking pretty dry across the tropical Northern Territory, Queensland. There are a few thunderstorms expected around where Hector blows up, around Darwin over in the evening hours. There are a few thunderstorms expected into the later parts of next week, and WA is looking pretty wet as well, but we're going to touch base on that in tomorrow's forecast update. Again, I'm still pretty uncertain about the weather forecast down there. The next couple of days, I'm going to be working hard on the 2024-25 wet season predictions. I've got a reiteration of them, as you've heard in the last couple of video updates. We're going to be releasing that on Tuesday, October 1st at 8 AM Australian Western Standard Time. That's 10 AM Australian Eastern Standard Time. It is going to be a big update indeed, comprehensive, covering all things rainfall, thunderstorms, and cyclones across the tropical north of Australia. We'll even touch on some forecasts for New South Wales as well, something that wasn't included in September's forecast. The forecast hasn't changed dramatically, but there are some details that I have found that I would like to iron out, so it is going to be a must-watch, that's for sure. And yeah, it is going to be a good forecast update. Certainly a forecast so far that I'm very proud of, and that I do think is going to be very reliable indeed. Like the September one, it is going to be a good forecast. That is all from me today, though. Thank you so much for watching the video to this point and putting up with my rambling for the last 5 minutes. If you do have any questions or comments, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. Get ready for the big game tomorrow. Make sure you are watching, especially if you are in the northeastern New South Wales and Queensland. Get inside and stay dry, because it is going to be a day for watching TV, and what better way to spend it than by watching the AFL Grand Final. Unfortunately, though, that's kind of the only place or one of the only places in Australia where they're not overly obsessed with footy, and they're more into their rugby up there. That is all from me today. Thank you so much for watching the video. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this show without them, so again, their support is much appreciated. That is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.